Welcome to Birken Forest Monastery. I'm Ajahn Sona, and we are here to answer questions from all over the world. We have quite a list of locations to the four quarters. So without further ado, please, Bodhi. Actually, just before we answer the first question, I should say that how we select questions, some of them were submitted a long time ago, and you can see that there is a place independently of the sidebar that you can submit questions at any time to the monastery. So check on your YouTube description. Yeah. And so we only get through about 10 questions per session, usually. And so even if we do it this 40 or 50 weeks out of the year, we get 400, 500 questions, which is a lot, but still not enough to answer all the questions. So don't feel hurt that if we don't get to your question. There's just hundreds of questions that are submitted sometimes, and we try to dig into some of the ones that were neglected. Some of them are a few months back. Some of them are from the live stream, so don't give up in terms of asking a question on the live stream. It's quite possible that it'll be answered, but even on the live stream, it's not possible to answer every question, so don't feel slighted. We also try to not answer the same question again and again. There's slight variations. There are many that are frequently asked, and we've already answered them, so try to get a good spectrum of questions and a good spectrum of answers as well. So without further ado, Bodhi.
Our first question, Ajahn, comes from Will in the live chat. I sometimes struggle with YouTube binges when stressed at work or elsewhere. Working with the 7th precept, I am trying to lessen this. Do you have any advice for addiction to entertainment?
Well, that seems to be an endemic situation, no? Or is it a pandemic situation? Addiction to, well, the pandemic didn't help, did it? Everybody trapped at home, and once they start spending the whole day entertaining themselves, then hard to break out of that habit. So that's part of it. Perhaps as the world starts to normalize a little bit, you'll find ways to do that. But you really have to, in your lucid moments, plan for what to do with your time. And you might even plan very systematically, including writing it down, or if writing has gone out of style, typing it down in your computer, that exactly what you plan to watch on your computer, what is it that you plan to watch this week? And maybe subject areas, something dignified rather than another cat video, or some little comedic 1-minute addiction video, something of importance, something to educate yourself, something to carry you into a certain type of mood. So you would write down, and you would give limitations to the hours that you're going to do this. What, in your best mind, when you're most clear, lucid, what do you think would be good for you to watch? Uplifting, clarifying, educating yourself. So you plan this ahead of time. And I've talked about this before, but it's something like when you go to the grocery store to buy food, you don't go hungry without a list. You eat, and when you're full, you make your list of shopping items for the week. And it's items that will improve, help your health, not degrade your health, not bought on impulse, etc. So that's how you do it. You plan. And you plan when you're in your best type of consciousness. This is important actually for other areas of life, is that when do you do your best thinking? It's not late at night, 2 o'clock in the morning when you're worried about everything. That's a poor time to do any thinking or listen to your mind at that time. So there are certain times when we're in a good state of lucidity, and that's when we should give guidance to our future mind, which will not be in such a great state of lucidity. And that is your mind which overrides your lesser states. So you write these things down and you follow it, and you make a commitment. Let's see if I can do this for 1 week. And if you can pull it off for 1 week, I can actually do this. I have no excuses. And a week is not an eternity, it's a week. But you realize, I have done it for a week. It's not like I can't do this. So I have to build this in until I'm re-habituated to non-impulsive, endless, timeless entertainment. And of course, the society around you will not encourage you to moderate your intake. There is no limits to, people can make money off this. So they want you to be entertained. They want you to be made anxious. So entertainment can come in the form of amusement, but it also can come in the form of drama. It also can come in the form of drama and dreadful news. And so that tends to rise to the top of the charts, negative news. So you got to just cut through this. It's a lot of manipulation and so forth. And much of this is just amplification of things that shouldn't be amplified. So this is very important to learn, to diet from these things, for everybody, Okay, next question, Bodhi.
Ajahn, this is a question from Ariel. How does one balance work and other responsibilities? Sometimes it seems that either one doesn't live fully or one lets others down when unable to fulfill a responsibility.
Well, there's two kinds of approaches to this. One is the state of the economy, and I presume you're in maybe the U.S. Are you where you're from? The U.S. Well, the Americans seem to work very hard. They often have 2 jobs, and the middle class is falling into the basement, and all kinds of desperate things are required. And people step up. They're really heroic to try to keep up their livelihoods and their situation. So sometimes it's not a matter of choice. You really have to work a lot. But if there is choice, now you have to decide this. Am I just frittering away my time? Am I just keeping busy for busyness' sake? Am I too concerned about letting other people down? Is this my personality configuration where I really need approval from everybody? I need to be told that I'm a hard worker and they're so impressed by me. This is some people's personality structure. Or am I really up against the wall? I'd simply have to, if you got 3 kids and you're raising them on your own, there's no choice. You got to work 12, 16 hours a day. There's just no choice. So you got to decide what situation are you in? Is it a personality thing or is it a necessity? And once you decide that, if it's a personality thing, then you're going to change your personality structure. And I think that it's important to also, when you can, get advice. If you're not making enough money from the types of activity, your livelihood, get advice about how you could improve that. Quite often, if you're so busy, this is kind of what the pandemic revealed. Apparently, a lot of people didn't go back to work. And why is that? It's because they had a few months or a year to think about it, what they've just been doing for the last 10 years, 20 years. And they thought, wow, when you're in it, it doesn't occur to you to get your head above the water and or maybe quit and find something else. But when you've got a break from it, people think, I really don't want to do that again. Your mind clears up and you can think. So this is what is happening. And a lot of people make decisions that they will find better opportunities, they will retrain, etc. So this is one of the things that you have to think about in your life as well, that could your time be better spent? Some of the blessings of life, which are mentioned in the Mangala Sutta, the Blessings of Life Sutta, are the developing skills. And skills are a blessing to have because you can make a livelihood with these things. And it's important that you realize this, that even small skills are really valuable. People without skills at all end up at the bottom in terms of wages and use of their time. So if you have the capacity, the intelligence, the talents, then use those, develop those, and they will bless you with a better livelihood. Okay, well, let's try the next question.
Our next question comes from Echinoderm in the live chat. Dear respected Venerable, how would one go about introducing the Dhamma to someone? I have a friend whose life I feel is dictated by modern ideas such as hustle culture, and I have been unsuccessful in convincing him to look further into the Dhamma. For most people, I tend to introduce the idea of the jhanas to show that it's something super normal and not in their current experience, to pique their interest.
Well, the first thing is the sad truth is that lots of people will not listen to this. When you're on a YouTube channel eagerly listening to a monk talk and so forth, you think, this is wonderful. I don't know why people don't do this. Well, notice that the cat videos get 1 million times more views than the Ajahn videos. So people live lives of quiet desperation. They live lives of frivolous distraction as well, and they're really not open to listening to these things. So, but you're not obliged to save souls. The Buddha makes it clear that it's just not going to happen to some people in this life, even that you care about, and that quite often when you advocate for it, they run away the other way. So occasionally somebody really wants to know, and you can recommend something, and others just don't want to know about it. And you have to be okay. You still have to be at peace in a world where lots of people are not going to find well-being and peace. And that's something the Buddha reinforces for you, that you can be at peace in the midst of the mass of people who are not well. In the midst of the sorrowing crowd, you are still able to be at peace and should be, and that you can't rescue them all in any way. And if you manage to help one person along in this life, well, that's wonderful. But you're not obliged to, because you can't be obliged to do things that are not possible to do. But if you're prepared, then you can offer something. But perhaps it may not be the most skillful thing to talk about the jhanas to somebody who's not acquainted with Buddhism. It may inspire some. This is, again, some people want to do extreme things. And jhana, or deep samadhi, deep meditation, is an extreme thing. It's not what normal people do. That's why it's called supernormal. But if that personality is not the case, they just want a little more relief in life from the desperate situation, then you have to start with a few little pieces of advice that have helped you along, and that can help a person get through the day a little bit better. So that's how to do it. The skill of teaching others is a whole skill in itself, right? Okay, next.
Our next question comes from AS in the live chat. In the 4 establishments of mindfulness, the Buddha teaches how to contemplate the body. I have read and heard this as unattractiveness or loathsomeness of the body. Can you please explain a way to do this type of contemplation? Additionally, why is the development of a mind that views the body as unattractive or loathsome beneficial? Thank you, from Florida.
Well, that primarily is for monastics in order to overcome desire and attraction to the body of others' bodies, and overcome vanity about one's own body. So if you're going to take up the celibate life, that's what's given as a reflection for your novice ordination. 5 subjects or 5 parts of the body at a novice ordination, because you have to do something which is kind of superhuman, and that is to give up sexual attraction to other bodies. And so you need some sort of therapy for that. This is, by the way, it's extremely difficult. The Buddha says monks, and this is speaking to monks, right, and nuns, I see no other thing for a man that's more attractive, more desirable than the sight of a woman, the sound of a woman, the smell, the taste, the touch, the thought of a woman. And same for women in the opposite direction. So there's a powerful natural desire built into humans. I guess I'm not telling anybody any news about that. You've all had sex ed in grade 3 these days. Anyway, this is a big deal. But if you're going to get free, if really free, you have to get past it. You can't be in a state of lack over desire for, romantic or sexual desire, and you can't be in a state of concern over the appearance of your own body in terms of how everybody else is viewing you. So these are the things that have to go. So you're using a therapeutic technique, sort of self-aversion technique. It has to be done very carefully, and I don't recommend it if you don't have a balanced practice. And it might be better to go with such things as loving kindness and breath meditation to give you detachment and dispassion rather than aversion or loathsomeness. That's even hard to say, isn't it? Loathsomeness. It's better to just go for somewhat reduced passion or some sort of quality of dispassion, at least most of the time, so you're not preoccupied. And so that 32 parts of the body, the aversive nature of the body, is kind of a monastic practice. But if you're a layperson and you really want to get over the whole craving and desire for the opposite sex, or in these days, the same sex, whatever it is, whatever your flavor is, whatever your desire is, it's got a hold on you. It's a credit card. You want to cut up your credit card because you keep getting in debt. So this is the idea. Like, desire is debt. Desire is lack. Desire is you're not feeling well, complete, and at peace if you're missing something. But what if you didn't miss it? Then you would feel well, complete, and at peace. So this is the aim of the exercise. The other way to do it without aversion, like all the gooey stuff, the blood and the intestines and all this kind of idea, is to just reflect on the 4 elements, that the body is some sort of earth, water, air, and warmth. That's all it is. It's just natural elements. And that's kind of neutral, so you can neutralize the experience of the body. Good luck with all of this, because it's a lifetime for most, it's a lifetime practice. But every amount that you get lucid about this, little bit of detachment about it, is an increase in well-being. You see, people. This is one of the great addictions in life as well, and sensory addiction. And this is just one of the famous ones: desire and craving and so forth for other people's bodies and so forth. There's just so. If you can get past this, then you feel much more peace in life. Yeah.
Ajahn, our next question comes from Bhavani in the live chat, and it's a nice segue. What is meant by neutral feelings? Are they important?
Well, all feelings are, from the ultimate view, are what they're important in the sense that they're transient, and what humans like is pleasant feelings, and they want to make pleasant feelings last, but pleasant feelings can't last. They slip away on you, and that causes a frustration. You're trying to do something impossible. You're on some sort of treadmill chasing after something that can't be stabilized and can't be attained finally, which is pleasant feeling. And of course, all you got to do is stub your toe on the treadmill and you experience painful feeling. So pain and pleasure, as you're fleeing from pain and pursuing pleasure, and that is an unsatisfactory way to live. Neutral feeling is only neutral in relationship to the other two feelings. This is quite interesting, I think. The Buddha analyzes this. And by the way, not only the Buddha, but I came across this with Socrates as well. The Greek philosophers were very interesting fellows, and they had a lot of insight into human nature. But neutral feeling after pleasant feeling is experienced as negative feeling, because the absence of the pleasant feeling is experienced as a negative. But neutral feeling following painful feeling is experienced as pleasure. So if you have a terrible toothache and then finally it goes away, your ordinary state that you don't even pay attention to is suddenly experienced as a wonderful experience. After getting over an illness, ordinary life is just wonderful. It's experienced as pleasure, but eventually that goes away, and then you start seeking the ordinary neutral feelings of the body and so forth are not enough. You crave to have some stimulation. And then people, they can't bear to have just neutral feeling. They need pleasant feeling all the time, and this is an addictive cycle. So that it's the insight regarding the futility of these brief and unstable feelings in the body, and emotional, pleasant, neutral, and painful feelings as well are problematic if they're established on the situation in the world around you. If they're focused on the spiritual center, they have you do have the capacity to stay in a rather pleasant condition, quite independent of the worldly situation. So the Buddha is not against pleasant feelings in the spiritually based pleasant feeling. Yeah. So that's just in brief. Yeah.
Our next question comes from Kathy in the live chat from Indiana. I'm working on right mindfulness. Does sloth have certain thoughts accompanying it? Can you give examples, please?
Yes. Sloth is overcome by energy. So this is a balance structure. There are what I call 5 faculties, and they are faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. And concentration and energy are 2 of these, and they're on the teeter-totter. So just imagine from left to right, faith on one side and wisdom on the other side of the teeter-totter. And then on the left side again, energy, and concentration on the other side, and mindfulness in the middle of the teeter-totter. The tendency of the problematic tendency of energy is to become excessive. So that is called agitation. And the problematic tendency of concentration is to become slothful or sink into low energy states. So mindfulness notices this. If the scale goes off in concentration towards sloth, then it has to bring in energy. And if the scale goes off with energy towards agitation, then you have to bring in some sort of concentration focus in order to bring that agitation down. So energy, if you're feeling slothful, then the Buddha, gives all kinds of practical advice. Just go wash your face with cold water, step outside, take a few breaths, look up at the sky, get some light in your eyes, go for a walk, listen to a Dhamma talk, something to energize you. One of the energizing meditations is death. You only got so much time and you don't know when it's going to be over. It could be over tomorrow or while you're listening to me on YouTube. At the end of this breath, it could be over. That should motivate you. And people who think, well, I think about death, it doesn't energize me. Yeah, except that, you're off at Walmart and somebody comes in with a gun and starts firing it off, as is a popular sport these days. You'll be energized, all right. Your sloth will vanish in a finger snap. Your life is on the line, and it's deception that you're safe and things are normal. It's not safe and it's not normal ever. Life is always hanging by a thread. And you got to bring this into awareness and consciousness that if there's anything important to do with this life, then I better get on with it. And it turns out, that there is only one possible important thing, is that I have to set it up so that I have a decent future or a better future, quite beyond this life, in fact. So look at how motivated people are to make a better future in this life. But you can't take it with you. So the money and the body and everything goes in this life. You can see that plainly, there is something more. So there are things to get on with, and you have to learn. So you have to hustle and learn what is spiritually important. So this is how you energize yourself. Yeah.
Our next question comes from Karnatik in the live chat. I know monks refrain from playing music, but with regards to metta practice, I understand it's recommended to recall good memories of wholesome feeling. You once said, make a map. Is mentally rehearsing the music the same as doing it aloud?
No, you got a bunch of things confused there. Making a map means that if you manage to get into a state of samadhi or concentration, and that's on a spiritual topic, not music concentration, but on a non-sensuous concentration, like the breath or something like this. If you manage to get into a decent state, what's important is not staying there for a long time, but is carefully reflecting on how this happened, what your day was like, what kind of thoughts you had before, and even the physical posture you were in, etc. A map to get back to this magical space. So that's the idea of mapping out and being able to repeat it. And so music, recalling perhaps associated feelings. So you think, wow, I get this beautiful uplift from music. I wish I could do this without the music. I want to do it with the silence. But by the way, music, in a lot of music, there are rests. There are notes, but there are absence of notes, and the absence of note can be every bit as effective as the note, right? What follows the last chord, that silence that follows the last chord of a profound piece of music, is as important as the music. It's a summary of the silence that follows that is extraordinary. So think about that the silence is an aspect of music as well. So can we find the profundity of silence as well? Yeah.
Our next question, Ajahn, comes from Wendy in Calgary. Dear Ajahn Sona, is inner sound included in one of the 5 aggregates? It never seems to begin or end, and when attention is paid, it's always there. I understood that all 5 aggregates are impermanent.
Just let me talk about this so-called inner sound. Ajahn Sona particularly has a whole teaching called the sound of silence, the nada, the sound of silence. Apparently, this is part of some of the Hindu teachings as well, which is it's not really a sound. It's not really silence. It's some sort of sound, and it's kind of like the background hiss of the workings of your ear or your mind or something. It's a background that's there when you pay attention to it. However, it is not permanent in any way. It's a process. So what the impermanent part is that you're hearing it. So it's your hearing consciousness is what is part of the 5 aggregates, the 5 aspects of a human being. So that's consciousness, sound consciousness. And sound consciousness, you can only hear because it's a process, right? You can only hear it in time. By the way, so sound happens in time. Sight can be you can see a still photo, but listening to, say, a piece of music or somebody speaking to you is always a temporal process. So it's of all of them, it's the most obviously impermanent. So you're hearing a background sound and then of course your attention is diverted away from that. When you divert back to it, then you hear it again and you think, oh, that sound has been there all the time. But no, your consciousness has been interrupted and then comes back to it. So your experience is the sound consciousness. It's not the object of your listening. It's the experience of hearing, which is impermanent. It wouldn't be very relevant if we could find some sound out in the universe that was always there. It's not very relevant to your existence. It's the fact that all of what you are is impermanent and a process. So that's why sound consciousness is also part of the 5 aggregates, and they're all impermanent.
Ajahn, the next question is from David in Arizona. I have found no trace of a self or soul. What could be meant by past and future births and deaths?
Right. Well, you can't find any trace of a soul, and so what could be meant by tomorrow and yesterday in this life? Does a child become an adult? Does a fetus become a baby? Or so in this very life, there is nothing substantial going from one moment to the next moment, and yet you have no problem with saying, I am David from Arizona. We don't think about it very much, but we are an ever-changing flux of processes, mental, emotional, bodily, and we somehow feel satisfied with saying, oh, you're my old friend from high school. I haven't seen you for a few years. You've changed a little bit, but somehow it's you, but with a few changes. So it's no more problematic than a child becomes an adult, that one would go to the next life. We don't literally mean that some a stable entity goes from this life to the next life, or a stable entity came from a previous life into this life, any more than in this life, a stable entity goes from being 4 years old to being 5 years old. The 4-year-old, by the way, is not inside the 5-year-old, like a layer of onions. It's the 4-year-old's gone, and there's only the 5-year-old, and then the 5-year-old's gone, and there's a 6-year-old. And no matter how you search for the 4-year-old, you won't find it in the 5-year-old. You'll find patterns that have resemblances, but no actual thing. So, in fact, this is the very important part of the Buddha's description, is that a soul, a kind of an indivisible, substantial soul, does not, there is nothing to be found in this body, and in a person, and so no such thing goes to the next life. So it's just processes flowing and conditioning, leaving conditional patterns on the next life. So it's like a whirlpool in a river. The pattern in a whirlpool can sustain for centuries in a river. Sweeps past a rock and starts to twirl around and so forth. But it's inherently not a thing. It's just a pattern, a swirling pattern. Yeah.
Our next question comes from Manny in the live chat. Ajahn, what Buddhist practice can pacify thoughts of anger or resentment that surface repeatedly? Is complete elimination of these thoughts possible?
Well, not only possible, but highly desirable. And every step that you can go towards that is an improvement in the quality of life, because anger is an inherently negative, painful, unpleasant feeling, and it distorts your view of the world. So if you can overcome this, then you will have a more clear and impartial view of your life, of yourself, of others, and the world around you. And you will be free of a lot of negative, painful types of emotions, and the health, negative health impacts of anger as well. I think a lot of diseases are as a result of anger, and anger, of course, is a secondary thing. It's the way one looks at life, and so it's you attend unwisely to the faults of the world, to the faults of oneself, to the faults of others, to the faults of anything that comes within the range of your mind. You are attending unwisely to those faults, and therefore this thing called, this emotion called anger arises. So if you can attend wisely, we're not denying there are faults in the world, or that we have faults. We can attend wisely to this, then it won't be followed by this negative emotion called anger. And so every bit that we can understand that and weaken that is profitable. And every time the more you prevent yourself from being angry, the greater the chances of not being angry the next time, because it's a kind of a reflex. So by not becoming angry, you weaken the future possibilities of becoming angry. So people who are angry practice a lot. They practice being angry, and so they're very good at it. They can do it without the slightest effort. They think it happens to them, but actually they've practiced it a lot. So if you practice the opposite of not being angry, eventually it will be second nature to you. You'll feel like that there's no effort to being not angry. And on the opposite side is loving kindness. So you practice that, and eventually you get spontaneously achieve the quality of loving kindness, which is accompanied always by pleasant feeling.
Our next question comes from Marcus in the live chat. Dear Ajahn, I am struggling to overcome the hindrances, just keeping the 5 precepts. Would it speed up my progress if I force myself to keep the 8 precepts?
It might help you to keep 8 precepts. that's the 8 precepts are kind of what is a kind of a bridge to the monastic way of life, where you're reducing your distractions. So some of the things that are eliminated are entertainment and indulging in, say, eating randomly or snacks and meals and so forth. You're eating in a limited period of time, just the basics, not distracted by entertainment and so forth, and you're giving up also one of the preoccupations of people that is sex. So this clears the table. I mean, you've got all the livelong day to just focus on in a more subtle way with your mind. However, if you try to do this in the middle of, if you just announce this to your girlfriend, okay, from now on, no supper, no entertainment, and no sex. She may not be happy with that. Or your wife, or your husband, or whatever it is, you're going to put yourself, you're going to make a heck of a mess there, friend. But maybe you're a bachelor, you live alone, or you're is this a guy that's talking to me? Who is this? What's his name?
I'm sorry.
I think it was a fellow.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. But whoever it is, doesn't matter whether you're male, female, or somewhere in between. The same thing applies. If you're in a social relationship with family or friends or stuff, and you suddenly start behaving like you're in a monastery, you might run into conflict, which might aggravate your situation more than improve it. So you have to make a decision. Is this going to help me or hinder me? So it's perfectly okay. Of course, if you go to a retreat or a monastery, then it's absolutely supported and helpful. And some people in the lay life can perfectly follow 8 precepts. I know numbers of them that take up the 8 precepts, but it requires a certain kind of lifestyle. And if that's your fortunate condition, then it can be very beneficial. Yeah.
On a related note from Deborah, in 2020 and 2021, I was happy, living a simple life. I'm finding myself now caught up in craving for things and experiences that I really craved before COVID. How can I be happy with a simple life again?
Well, I think you just bring it up as that was a fortunate time, and I must get back to that. So at least you have experienced the joy of the simple life. And yes, what happened is I guess the COVID situation gave you supportive conditions for a simpler life, as it did with many. Many people just went out of their minds because it was too simple. And others thought, this is really good. I'm benefiting from this lockdown, this pandemic, this absence of work. So people had different reactions to the situation. So you benefited, and that's a very good personality test. That if you benefited from solitude and less stimulation and less activity, then that's a good spiritual sign. That's a good sign. So you have to reshape your life so you have less demands and you can find your way back to a simpler life. It's sometimes difficult. The problems of livelihood and relatives and social demands and so forth are not an easy thing to solve. That, by the way, is why the Buddha compassionately started a monastic order, because he realized to do this on your own is such a difficult thing, but we could make it easier by forming a sort of society of spiritual dropouts and have a whole opportunity for people to enter into this condition. I mean, we accept what is a commonplace in modern society is to go to university. Just think about that. Somebody drops out basically of productive labor and goes off for 4 years, 5, 6 years, to a university that costs them a lot of money, and how they manage. They go into debt and so forth, and everybody approves it. They clap for it. That's great. You're going to university and all that kind of stuff. So it's a feature that has not necessarily been part of other societies, but it's a thing these days. And so you just have to decide what your values are. Other people approve of that, but your values might be the simple life. And so you're going to have to do whatever it takes to live the simple life.
Our next question is from Les in Northumberland, UK. In light of the worst predictions for the effects of global warming, where it may come to pass that the human species on Earth is extinct in perhaps as few as a few generations, what is the Buddhist view on this, considering Buddhist cosmology and that the human realm is optimal for arahantship?
Yeah, we can also throw in nuclear holocaust as well. So there's a couple of ways, several ways. I think there's 4 or 5 ways to terminate the human population on the Earth. And so some ask, well, what about this journey in samsara, and where, if there's no habitable place on the Earth, where are you reborn, etc.? And this is very, very lucidly answered in the Buddhist ideas. It's not a hard problem at all. There are levels of being, and above and below the human level. And if there are no opportunities for rebirth in the human level on the planet, then one remains in other dimensions of being. What you might call the heavenly dimensions, the ghostly dimensions, the animal dimensions, the hellish dimensions. There's lots of places. The human dimension is only one of a number of options. So it's kind of like the Earth at sometimes has, the sea level on the Earth has been 80 feet higher than it is now, 100 feet higher perhaps, or more. And then at sometimes it's been much less than it is now. So if it's a closed system, where did the water come from? It didn't fall from the sky, or it didn't come from outer space or anything like that. How is it possible that the ocean rises and falls when you have a closed system? Well, there's something called ice. So as you see, that a lot of the water on the planet is locked up in ice. Now, ice is a phase change of water. It's just a phase change of water. So others bring up the problem of, how does the human population increase? Where are there new souls being produced, or new? How can, doesn't that make a problem for the theory of rebirth, that the human population is increasing? No, it doesn't. Just like it doesn't make a problem for sea level that it's increasing, because it's coming from another phase change, that is melting ice. So there are incalculable numbers of beings. This is Buddhist cosmology. I'm not making this up myself. This is, it's not hard for anybody educated in any technical way. It's certainly not harder than grade 11 physics or anything like this to understand the Buddhist concepts of being and the cycle of birth and death. In the universe, there's just multiple dimensions, and beings are flowing between these. They're flowing but not retaining identity. So ice is not water, and water is not ice. And yet, water can become ice, and ice can become water through a thing we call phase change. And so this is the same for humans. So actually, it's not really a problem for Avaraya if the planet, something smashes into the planet and terminates all life on the planet. From a Buddhist point of view, it's planets come and go. Universes come and go again and again into unknowable, perhaps infinity, something which can't be determined and incalculable. And so that's the situation, what we would call samsara, that is the infinite change. The beginning is unthinkable and an ending is unthinkable. So in the midst of this vast cosmology of change, the primary problem is the nature of existence itself. And that's to solve the problem of suffering in the midst of constant change. Yeah.
Our next question comes from Upasaka Sue from Suk. Lately, my email inbox is flooded with announcements about conferences or series of talks on the future of American Buddhism, with the focus being on how Buddhism can be open to the wealth of diversity and still tap the need for spiritual depth. What are your thoughts on this heightened interest in the future of Buddhism, both from your personal perspective and that of Theravada Buddhism?
Well, I would say that American culture, I'm speaking to you from Canada, which is almost equally guilty, but not quite. American culture is the height of advertising, the height of marketing, and even the most solemn spiritual things are quickly. Everybody's trying to figure out a way to make some dough off of it, or sell a pillow connected to it, or something like that. Like it's like to market this stuff. So, and of all these apps and mindfulness apps and stuff, how come I'm not on there? Get up, market me. At least I'm on YouTube. But I certainly don't sell well. There's people with, I don't know, when you do, what is it, the mindfulness, the insight timer and stuff like that. I mean, how come 1 million people listen to some layperson talk to them, for 5 minutes and send them $1 and you don't want to listen to monks? Why is that? Because we're not saleable. We're not very marketable. But, you get what you pay for. You get what you pay for. So people will market it to you to make it palatable to you. To make it as easy and miraculous and whatever to you. But it ain't easy sometimes, and it's not so palatable. It can be difficult, but if you just go for what sounds good, you might buy wooden nickels. That's an old saying. I don't know, are nickels around anymore? Don't accept wooden nickels. So yeah, you get what you pay for. You get and the paying is like you just think this is somebody taps you on the head and you're all better, or what? It doesn't work that way. So you just got to accept reality that there can be a lot of work to this, but it's worth it. If you don't do the work, you can stay in a state of perpetual unsatisfactory or misery. And you do that because you just don't want to get around to experiencing some sort of discomfort in order to get past this situation that you're in. So that's the nature of like popular marketing. The Americans, it doesn't matter what it is, they will market it, and they will do a bang-up job on it as well. But you got to ask yourself, well, what is it that they're marketing, and is it really of value? And some of this stuff is good. I mean, they're good at what they do, and if they do it, if they get out some valuable stuff, I have no problem with that. Marketing is okay. There's nothing wrong with selling things to each other. Some people think there's something wrong with that, but the Buddha himself wasn't against business and livelihoods and so forth. He talked about all kinds of strategies for how to make a living and how to use your money and how to work for somebody else and how to have somebody else work for you and to be a business person, a trader, not a traitor, but a trader, trading one thing for another. He didn't find anything wrong with that. That's human culture and human society. If you want to be a monk, you need to step outside of that, outside of the commercial side of things. But in a regular human society, gives all kinds of advice for how to live a decent life where you make a livelihood and do all these various things. So in short, yeah, I mean, there's a great danger of just people just taking it and marketing it and selling you things that are really have no value. Yeah.
Ajahn, our next question also comes from the live chat from a gentleman or a lady whose handle is Toxic Waste 4342. I can't be a monastic due to disability, but am giving my life to practicing Dhamma and metta, meditation plus 6+ hours per day of Dhamma. Can a lay Buddhist have a Dhamma name to aspire towards?
Yes, I recommend you abandon toxic waste. How about if I give you one right now? Okay, I'm going to give you the name Metika, which is a kind of form of one who has loving kindness. Metika. And stop using toxic waste. Okay. I think this is the last question, by the way.
Yes, we have a final question from Upasika Ritchie in Rothesay, UK. What are perceptions? I find this term a bit confusing. For example, with a visual object, the eye sees something and the mind gives it a name, i.e., bird or water. Is that perception the combination of a sense object and the mind's interpretation of it? Or is there more to it than that? Is it also about our opinions of reality, our, quote, perceptions?
Yes, perception is about perceptions. Actually, perception is memory. So consciousness, if a child, 1 year old, you can put a coin in front of them. And what do they see? Do they see a coin? No. They see a shiny, something shiny. And they feel it. It feels this way, and it shines, but it's not a coin for them. Later on, when they start to understand what that a coin is, you can get some peanut butter with that or candy with that, then the perception is overlaid and it's a form of learned memory. And then after that, when they see a coin, they actually see a coin. They don't just see a shiny object. It's not merely consciousness. It's a learned memory. So perception is actually a learned memory. And of course, it can have all kinds of layers to it. So it can be exciting. It can be a problem. It can be a wounded memory. It can be a positive memory. All kinds of layers, and that's what perception is. And it happens instantly, and it doesn't feel like you're remembering anything because you've learned it and it's now automatic. So that's what basically what perception is. Yeah. Okay, so we will leave it for today, and if things go well, we'll be back next week for further questions and answers.